On Christmas morning, my 6-year-old daughter handed out little gifts she'd made herself. "Cheap junk," my sister whispered. My parents agreed and tossed them aside. My daughter froze and asked, "Mom, did I ruin Christmas?" I didn't shout. I did this. 3 days later, they regretted everything. But let me back up, because what happened that night didn't come out of nowhere, though at the same time, it blindsided me. You know those moments when you think you know how the day will go, and then life yanks the rug so hard you don't know if you're falling or floating? That was Christmas for me. Maisie, my little girl, had been counting down for weeks. Every day she'd sneak off with glue sticks and construction paper and beads that kept rolling under the couch. She was 6. She thought she was Picasso meets Martha Stewart. And honestly, she kind of was. At least to me. Every time she showed me a new bracelet, a little folded paper ornament, or some glittery thing that looked like it had survived a small explosion, my heart swelled. She was making gifts for everyone. For her grandparents. For her Aunt Nicole. For her cousins, Logan and Alyssa. She couldn't stop talking about how excited they'd be. And me? I was excited too. Not just for her, but for the whole day. I'd pulled a marathon in the kitchen. Turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, 3 pies because apparently one isn't enough for my mother. I strung the lights myself after Matt, my husband, nearly electrocuted us both. The house smelled like cinnamon and rosemary and a little bit of exhaustion. This was supposed to be our Christmas. The one where, for once, my family might act like human beings instead of critics on a cooking show from hell. Spoiler. I was wrong. When the doorbell rang, Maisie's eyes lit up like she'd just seen Santa himself. She tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "They're here, Mom." They're here. She had her little stash of gifts hidden under the tree, wrapped in tissue paper and decorated with stickers that didn't really stick. She wanted it to be perfect. I told her, "Patience, kiddo. Presents after dinner. That's the rule." She nodded, but her whole body vibrated like a soda can someone shook too hard. My sister Nicole swept in first, wearing perfume strong enough to knock out a horse. Behind her came Logan and Alyssa, already glued to their iPads, not even looking up to say hi. Then my parents, Mom in her fur coat, Dad already muttering about the driveway salt situation. Classic. Matt and I exchanged the look we always do, the one that says brace yourself. Dinner went fine. By fine, I mean Nicole complained about the turkey being a little dry. Mom asked why I didn't use her stuffing recipe again, and Dad fell asleep at the table before dessert. You know, festive. But Maisie didn't care. She sat there bouncing in her seat, her cheeks pink with anticipation, practically choking down her food so she could get to her big moment. I couldn't help it. I kept glancing at her, proud. For 6 years old, she'd done something really sweet. Something worth remembering. When the plates were finally cleared, she jumped up. "I have something for everyone," she announced, her voice cracking with excitement. She dragged out her little pile of presents, distributing them with care, her face shining as though she'd just unveiled the crown jewels. And then, silence. Nicole peeled open the tissue paper, blinked at the bracelet inside, and set it on the coffee table without a word. My mom picked up her glitter-covered ornament between 2 fingers like it might be contagious. Dad grunted. Logan and Alyssa looked at each other and smirked. The smirk turned into whispers. "Cheap garbage," Logan said. Alyssa giggled and echoed him. "Yeah, cheap garbage." Maisie froze. Her little smile faltered. I expected Nicole to step in, to scold her kids, to defend her niece. Instead, she leaned closer to them and murmured, "It's cheap junk, but be nice." Don't hurt her feelings. Except Maisie heard her. I did too. It was like someone had poured a bucket of ice water over my head. My sister. My own sister, undermining my daughter's pride right in front of her. And then came the cherry on top, my mother's voice. "Well, she's only 6. Garbage is what you get from a 6-year-old. It's cute, Katie, But let's be real laughter, not loud but there. A snicker from Nicole, a chuckle from my dad as if it were all some harmless joke. But it wasn't harmless. Not to Maisie. I turned just in time to see her eyes filling with tears, her lower lip trembling. She looked at me. Mom, help me. But before I could even open my mouth, she bolted. Up the stairs. The sound of her bedroom door slamming echoed through the house like a gunshot. For a second, no one moved. Matt pushed back his chair to follow her, but I was faster. My body just knew. I went after her, my heart pounding with rage, humiliation, grief, all of it tangled together. Behind me, I heard my mother sigh. She's too sensitive. Nicole. Yeah, Katie, you spoil her. She needs thicker skin. I stopped halfway up the stairs, gripping the banister so hard my fingers ached. My whole life they'd done this, picked at me, dismissed me, belittled everything I put effort into. But doing it to Maisie? My 6-year-old daughter who had only wanted to give them something from her heart? That was different. That was war. I didn't shout. I did something else. And 3 days later, they regretted everything. You might think that night was the first time my family tried to tear me down. I wish. No, that night was just the first time they aimed their poison arrows at Maisie. And that, my friend, is when everything changed. Because for as long as I can remember, I was the practice target. I was the younger sister, 3 years behind Nicole. 3 years doesn't sound like much, but trust me, it was a lifetime when I was a kid. She was always taller, shinier, more confident. She was the golden child. That's not me exaggerating. If Nicole so much as blinked in kindergarten, my parents applauded like she'd solved world hunger. Meanwhile, if I so much as built a decent paper snowflake, they'd laugh and say, "Cute, Katie, but why waste your time?" That was the theme. Nicole got the spotlight, I got the shadows. She liked sparkly, expensive things, brand names, shiny shoes, designer notebooks. Even as a kid, she'd pout until Mom bought her the glittery pen with rhinestones. I, on the other hand, loved glue and scissors and paper and string. If it was messy and handmade, I was in heaven. My family never missed a chance to mock me. "Katie and her little projects," they'd say. "You'll grow out of it." Spoiler, I didn't. Fast forward to adulthood, and you'd think maybe things would balance out. They didn't. Nicole kept chasing labels like they were oxygen, and my parents cheered her on. Meanwhile, I turned my silly little hobby into a real business. It started small, craft fairs, Etsy, late nights covered in hot glue burns, but it grew. Eventually, I went full-time. I was paying bills, stacking orders, actually thriving. Did my family respect that? Absolutely not. They made jokes, always jokes. "Who even buys this junk?" Dad would say. Or Nicole. "Well, at least people with no taste keep you in business." Mom would laugh and shake her head. "Katie, you're so lucky people pay for that stuff." Lucky. Right. Because all those sleepless nights and burned fingertips were luck. I got used to swallowing their insults like bitter pills, but they always went down jagged. Meanwhile, Nicole was drowning in debt despite earning a decent salary. Why? Because she treated every paycheck like it was confetti. New shoes, designer purses, private dance classes for Alyssa, some overpriced sports program for Logan. She was always living her best life on Instagram, but in reality, paycheck to paycheck, sometimes less. My parents weren't much better. They'd blow money on shiny cars, investment watches, vacations they couldn't afford. Essentials? An afterthought. One year, I got a phone call. They were behind on the mortgage. "We might lose the house," Mom cried. "We just need a little help." Temporary. I was stupid enough to believe them. I agreed to cover $350 a month for a while. That was years ago. Still paying, still temporary. Meanwhile, they're sipping champagne and showing off their new flat screen. Every time I think about it, I want to scream. Nicole pulled the same stunt. One day she called me, desperate. "Katie, I just need help paying for Alyssa's dance lessons this month. It's her future. You don't want to be the reason she gives up her dream, do you?" Classic Nicole. Guilt trip deluxe. I caved. Once. Then twice. 6 months later, I was basically sponsoring both her kids' hobbies. She always promised she'd pay me back, but somehow, those promises dissolved the moment she bought herself another pair of heels. And through it all, they still laughed at me, still dismissed my work, still acted like I was the silly one, the family craft clown. But you know what? I could live with their jokes. I'd been living with them my whole life. What I couldn't live with was what happened to Maisie. Because here's the thing, despite all their crap, they never touched her. Never. Maybe because kids were off limits, or maybe because they liked having me as the family punching bag instead. Whatever the reason, Maisie was safe. She was my bright spot, my shield against them. Until that Christmas, when they called her gifts cheap junk. When my 6-year-old's eyes filled with tears because the people she loved most mocked her. For me, it was the last straw. Do you see why I couldn't just let it go? Because my whole life had been training for that moment. Every insult, every joke, every fake smile while I wrote another check, they'd been sharpening me like a blade. And Christmas night? That was when the blade finally cut. Back in Maisie's room, she was curled up on her bed, clutching her pillow. Her face was blotchy, her little hands still sticky with glitter glue. "Mom," she whispered, "did I ruin Christmas?" I swear my heart cracked in half. I sat down beside her and pulled her close. "No, sweetheart. You didn't ruin Christmas. They did. What you made was beautiful. They just don't understand." Maisie sniffled, burying her face in my shirt. "But they laughed." "I know," I said. My voice shook, but I held her tighter. "And that's their loss. Not yours." Just then, Matt appeared in the doorway. He looked as furious as I felt, his jaw tight. "Katie, do you want me to—" "Yes." My voice was sharp, decisive. For once, no hesitation. "Go downstairs. Tell them Christmas is over. They can leave." He didn't argue, didn't ask for details. He just nodded, turned, and went. I stayed with Maisie, stroking her hair, feeling the storm brewing in my chest. I could hear the muffled sound of Matt's voice downstairs, then a pause, then the low rumble of objections. I didn't care. Let them grumble. Let them roll their eyes. Because if they thought me sending them home was the big rebellion, if they thought that was all I was going to do, they were dead wrong. That was just the warning shot. The real war hadn't even started yet. The next morning, the house was quiet. Maisie was still asleep, curled up with her glitter-stained pillow, and Matt had taken the dog out. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and my laptop, staring at the steam. My heart was still pounding from the night before, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. So I did the thing I should have done years ago. First, I pulled up the banking app and canceled every recurring transfer. The $350 temporary payment to my parents, gone. Just like that, 5 years of bailing them out, $21,000 flushed down the drain, was officially over. It felt like cutting an umbilical cord that should have been severed decades ago. Then I opened a blank document and started typing. Invoice. Outstanding balance. Alyssa's dance lessons, 6.5 months at $120. Total. $780 Logan sports fees. 6.5 months at $150 total. $975 car loan. July $500. Logan sports equipment. Last year $800 total due. $3,055. I stared at the number. $3,055 clean. Sharp. Not a guess. Not an exaggeration. Just math. I attached it to an email addressed to Nicole. The subject line, repayment. The body, This is the amount you've promised to pay back over the last year and a half. Please arrange repayment within 30 days. I will not be covering any further expenses for you or your children. Katie. Send. It was better than champagne. Nicole didn't take long. My phone lit up before I'd even finished my coffee. Are you out of your mind? She shrieked the second I answered. No hello, no pause. Just claws. You're sending me a bill? To your own sister? What the hell is wrong with you? I leaned back in my chair, kept my voice calm. What's wrong with me? Nicole, this is literally your debt. These are the exact amounts you promised to pay back. I've just organized them for you since you seem to have trouble keeping track. She practically growled. This is petty, Katie. Petty and cruel. You're punishing my kids because they didn't like your daughter's little craft project. My blood ran cold. Don't you dare! My voice was steady, but I could feel my hand shaking. Don't you dare drag Maisie into this. This isn't about her gifts. This is about you treating me like an ATM for years. You're unbelievable, she snapped. You'd take food out of your niece and nephew's mouths. Oh, please. I let out a bitter laugh. Your kids have more iPads than friends. They're not starving. If you want them in dance and sports, then pay for it yourself. I'm done. There was a long, dangerous silence. Then, you're throwing a tantrum. That's all this is. You'll calm down and come crawling back, like always. Not this time, I said. I'm not your doormat anymore. And I hung up. For a moment I sat there trembling, phone in my hand, adrenaline buzzing in my veins. Nicole thought I was bluffing. That was fine. She'd learn soon enough. A few days passed in relative silence. I almost thought maybe, just maybe, she'd leave it alone. Then my parents called. I should have known. Nicole tells us you sent her a bill, Mom started, her voice dripping with disapproval. No hello, no Merry Christmas, just straight into judgment. Is that true? Yes, I said flatly. My dad chimed in, his tone stern, like I was 16 again. Katie, that's disgraceful. She's your sister. Families don't send invoices. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Oh, but families do borrow money, don't they? Families do promise to pay it back and then conveniently forget. Families do guilt-trip each other into endless handouts. But invoices? That's where we draw the line? This is petty, Mom snapped. It's shameful. We raised you better than this. I felt my jaw tighten. No, you didn't. If you'd raised me better, maybe I wouldn't have spent half my adult life propping you all up while you spent your money on crap you don't need. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for my money back. There was a pause, then Dad cleared his throat. Fine. But about the mortgage. Your transfer is due next week. Are you going to send it or not? I closed my eyes, savoring the moment. Not. What do you mean, not? Mom's voice sharpened. I mean, I said slowly, I canceled it. All of it. The gravy train is over. You'll need to figure it out yourselves. The line went so quiet I thought it had dropped. Then Dad spoke, hesitant now. Katie, don't be rash. We'll sort this out at the New Year's party. That made me laugh again. I couldn't stop it. Oh, there won't be a New Year's party. Not this year, Mom gasped like I'd confessed to murder. What are you talking about? Of course there will. You always host, not anymore, I said. You're not invited. None of you are. You can't mean that. Oh, I do, I said, and I ended the call. For a long moment I just sat there, phone buzzing in my hand, my heart hammering. They thought I was bluffing, that I was just in a mood. Let them. Because this wasn't the end. It was far from over. Hosting that New Year's party felt like rebellion. For years, it had been my job to set the table, roast the meat, string the lights, and pretend my family wasn't slowly sucking me dry. But this time, The guest list was trimmed, selective, mine. No Nicole, no Mom, no Dad. Instead, I invited a few close friends, a couple of cousins I could actually tolerate, and one of Maisie's school friends with her mom. It wasn't the sprawling production it used to be, but for once it felt like my party, not theirs. Maisie had someone to play with, which made her glow. She kept running back into the living room with glitter in her hair, giggling with her little friend, and every time I saw her laugh, something in me healed a little. Of course, people noticed the missing chairs. "Are your parents coming?" a cousin asked as she poured herself a glass of wine. "No," I said simply, passing the bowl of olives. "What about Nicole and her kids?" another asked. "They're not coming either." I didn't explain. Let them wonder. Gossip is cheaper than champagne, and my family always loved a bargain. The party hummed along for a while. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. For the first time in forever, I wasn't tense in my own living room. And then, because fate has a sick sense of humor, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there they were, Mom, Dad, and Nicole. All three of them, standing there with smiles plastered on their faces, carrying bottles of wine and a store-bought cake like props in a play. Nicole, at least, had the sense not to drag her kids along for the ambush. "Happy New Year!" Mom sang, like she hadn't spent the last week calling me petty and shameful. I blocked the doorway. "You weren't invited." Nicole gave a laugh, brittle and sharp. "Oh, Katie!" "Don't be ridiculous." It's tradition, Dad cleared his throat, lifting the wine. "We brought Merlot." "I don't care if you brought the Holy Grail," I said, but before I could stop them, they swept past me, into the house, into the party. And just like that, the air changed. Guests turned. Some eyebrows rose. A couple of people looked downright relieved, like, oh good, the family drama was exaggerated after all. I stood there in the doorway, teeth grinding, wondering if homicide was legal on holidays. They made themselves at home. Mom set the cake on the counter. Nicole poured herself a glass of champagne like she'd earned it. People whispered. Then came the dagger. An aunt leaned over and said, just loud enough for others to hear, "It's nice of them to come, after all the support they've given you." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" She gave me that look, the one older relatives give when they think you're being ungrateful. "Well, yes. I mean, everyone knows your parents and Nicole have always helped you out, and then well, I heard you even sent your sister a bill." My stomach dropped. So that was their game. They'd been busy spinning their own story. In their version, they were the generous saints propping up poor, helpless Katie. And me? I was the ungrateful brat who dared send a bill. The whispers grew louder. Eyes turned toward me. Judgment, confusion, pity. It was all there. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward, clinked my glass with a spoon until the room fell quiet. "Since we're sharing stories tonight," I said, "why don't we tell the whole truth?" "Won't take more than 5 minutes." Nicole's face paled. Mom stiffened. Dad muttered, "Katie, don't." "Oh, I'm going to." I cut in. I grabbed my laptop, plugged it into the projector I'd set up for party games later, and pulled up a folder I'd labeled receipts. Because yes, I keep records. Years of them. The first slide popped up on the wall. A spreadsheet. Numbers neat. Merciless. "Let's start with my parents," I said, my voice steady, though my hands shook. 5 years ago, you told me you were behind on your mortgage. You said it was temporary. I agreed to cover $350 a month until you got back on your feet. That was 60 payments ago." Gasps rippled across the room. I clicked. The total glowed on the screen. $21,000. "That's what I've paid. Not you supporting me. Me supporting you." I clicked again. A new slide. Nicole's invoice. Every line item broken down with dates. "Now my sister," I said. "Alyssa's dance lessons, Logan's sports fees, 6.5 months. That's $1,755. Add the car loan, $500. Add the sports gear, $800. Total, $3,055, I turned, eyes locked on Nicole. Which, by the way, you promised to pay back. The room was silent, every face stunned. A cousin's jaw actually dropped. Nicole tried to laugh. This is absurd. You're humiliating me. No, I snapped. You humiliated me. You spread lies. You told people you were the one supporting me when I've been bankrolling you for years. So no, Nicole, I'm not humiliating you. You did that yourself. I clicked again. The final slide appeared. Pictures of Maisie's Christmas gifts, her glittery bracelets, her paper ornaments, her clumsy but beautiful little creations. This, I said, my throat tight, is what my daughter made with her own hands. And this is what they, my so-called family, called cheap junk. This is what they laughed at. A murmur swept through the guests. Some looked horrified. Others glared openly at my parents and Nicole. Someone muttered, "Unbelievable." Nicole's face went red. Mom reached for her coat. Dad muttered something about not staying where they weren't wanted. Good. I closed the laptop. There's the truth. Now you can decide for yourselves who's been supporting who. For a moment no one moved. Then slowly, applause. One person, then another, until the room was clapping. Not for them, for me. For Maisie. My parents and Nicole slipped out, humiliated, their cake still sitting untouched on the counter. The door closed behind them with a finality that made my chest ache and my lungs finally fill with air. The party roared back to life, lighter, freer, louder than before. People came up to me, patting my shoulder, whispering things like, "Good for you." Maisie and her little friend danced in the corner, laughing. For the first time in my life, the weight was gone, and I realized I hadn't just hosted a New Year's party. I'd hosted a revolution. Fast forward 1 year. I haven't spoken to my parents or Nicole since that New Year's night, and honestly, silence has never sounded sweeter. No calls, no guilt trips, no temporary payments. Just peace. And it's not just me. Half the family cut them off after the projector show. Turns out, people don't like liars, especially ones who mistreat 6-year-olds. Who knew? Maisie, meanwhile, is thriving. Her cheap junk has a fan club now, cousins, neighbors, even some adults who fight over her glitter-covered creations. Last week, she handed her friend a popsicle stick jewelry box and got a standing ovation from a room of 8-year-olds. That glow on her face? Worth more than every check I ever wrote to my parents combined. As for Mom and Dad, word is they lost the house. Supposedly couldn't keep up with the mortgage. Which is funny because with their pensions they should have managed just fine. But no, they went on that once-in-a-lifetime cruise instead. Priorities, right? Hope the sunsets were worth the foreclosure. Nicole's not doing much better. Rumor has it she still whines about the invoice. Apparently, being held accountable is now a crime. Her old friends avoid her, her reputation's in the gutter, and her kids quit their fancy activities anyway. So yes, they got their consequences. Public, humiliating, lasting. And me? I got something better. A daughter who knows her worth, a home full of laughter instead of poison, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I finally drew the line. But here's the real question. Did I do the right thing? Did I go too far, or not far enough? You tell me.